This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Welcome to Monday's Late Late Show. Tonight we have a secondary school teacher, me, and a primary school teacher talking about creativity across the curriculum, why creative subjects as well as creativity in general are so important in schools, and what we can do to build creativity and make it a bit more successful.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
So we are here. Well, I am here right now. Ray, your host, is here. I'm waiting for our our other educational expert, Leanne, a primary school teacher, to join us in a few minutes. But the goal today is to discuss something that I think affects literally all of us in every school we're in, every key stage we teach, every student we teach and engage with, and that is creativity, because it is so important. It is undoubtedly an incredibly important part of how we develop as people. It is key to teaching kids, but so much more than that. I mean, I could start by rattling off a Dead Poets Society quotation, but I'll save that for a little bit later. Creativity matters so much, and it's always interesting to see how the trends go in terms of what's in fashion and what's not. But Leanne has joined us, so I'm waiting for Leanne to join. So while we're waiting for Leanne, our primary contingent, I feel like I need to vent a little bit, just to get it off my chest. Today was the first day back at work when all the students were present. And somehow, relevant to the topic today, I managed to include a lot of creativity, a lot of creative tasks in my lessons as a secondary English teacher. Managed to do that, which happens literally every day normally, but to do it on the first day and the first lessons with these new classes with students, most of whom I didn't know, I actually felt incredibly accomplished. But apart from that, it's just been actually a little bit manic. I thought I had this grand plan over the weekend. I was like, I'm going to look up all of these statistics. I am going to drown listeners in stats about creative subjects and creative industries, and why why creativity is so key to education and everything we do. And I had time to look up absolutely none of it. So I've got some facts and information from previous researching escapades, but honestly, I've not been able to think about this at all. I don't know how people, I mean, I feel like my response of being completely overwhelmed and feeling like I've been hit by a bus is a pretty standard response to the first day when you have all of the kids present. Because last week we had year 7, we had year 11, and we had year 12 in on Friday. You know, the I almost said the important year groups. How awful is that? We had, just laughing at myself here, waiting for Leanne. We had certain year groups in to get settled and complete some admin, and that felt busy. But just to have everyone in one go and teach almost a full day, it was just it was a lot. It was a lot, and so I actually felt I was reflecting on this on my way home. The probably the only moment of peace I had in that 12-hour span of my life. And I thought it was actually really good to do the vaguely creative tasks that I did do, because and I'll explain what they are later on, but it gave me, it gave the students, it gave us a bit of a break, like a breather, a bit of a calming moment. And again, that's just kind of one of the benefits of not being go, test, you know, in that kind of mindset all of the time. I mean, you see that, walk into any art room, like GCSE or A-level art classroom in a secondary school or a college when students are working. And yes, there are moments of madness. Yes, sometimes paint gets everywhere. Yes, sometimes you have things spilling and destroying stuff, and it is obviously messy. But 90% of the time, it's so peaceful. It is so peaceful, and it is calm, and people are just working quietly with music or low level relevant calm discussion. It's a beautiful, beautiful environment in my experience anyway. I've never spent every single day in there, and never with Key Stage 3. So don't want to make sweeping generalizations for all our teachers, but to bring a little bit of that atmosphere into English lessons on the first day, setting that tone, I think was really, really important, and just, again, reiterated another reason why having these more creative approaches can be incredibly beneficial. So still waiting to hear from Leanne, who's not quite. Leanne, can you you are here, Leanne, but we cannot hear you because you're not showing up in my co-host or speaker list. Very strangely. Very, very strangely. How odd. So just Leanne, so you know what's going on, since we're communicating this way. You're in the room, but you're not, I invite you and you're not showing up on the co-host or speakers list. So, all right, Leanne's going to try and sort it out. So let me again give the listeners a little bit of context for this. So I've wanted to address this topic for a while, and I initially had a secondary school teacher who sorry, I'm reading words on the screen, who teaches a creative subject, a full-time creative subject, as a guest, and that particular show didn't turn out. But I think talking to Leanne, who's a primary school teacher, and if we can ever hear her speak, she'll explain that in a bit more detail. It's really interesting because it's one thing to hear teachers of these creative subjects when that's their bread and butter, that's their passion, that's what they do. They teach that particular subject in a distinct lesson in that particular context, for an end goal. This is art class. You are going to develop your art skills. This is GCSE drama. You're going to take the GCSE drama exam or in that qualification. It's one thing to have people in that position wax poetical about the importance of these subjects and how they should be integrated across different curriculums. Oh, Leanne,
Yay!
Hi. Okay, great. Yes, I'm just going to finish my thought so I don't end halfway through a sentence, because then I feel like I've been interrupted in a lesson and it's going to bother me. So it's one thing to have students, to have teachers of these subjects talk about how important it is, but I feel like it's a different and important perspective to have non-creative subject specialists talk about the importance of creative subjects themselves and of creativity in general across schools, across key stages, and across different subjects in the curriculum. So I'm excited to speak to you, Leanne, and hear you speak back at me.
It was the most simple thing. My microphone was off in my settings on Podbean. So,
there we go. See, technology sometimes has an easy fix. Isn't it wonderful when that happens? Okay. Do you want to introduce yourself and a bit of your background and what year groups you've taught?
Sure.
Thanks.
So I teach primary. It's my second career, actually, and I have moved around the primary spectrum quite a bit. I've done reception, year 1, year 2, and year 6. So in that respect, in regards to our show, Ray, I've done drama with 4-year-olds and 7-year-olds. So, yes.
Yes, I've also taught drama as well. So I think I think unless we want to count media studies as a creative subject, which it is, I would argue it actually is, but I feel like it's kind of a gray area. It kind of straddles that line between, the arts and English and those kind of skills, because there's quite a mixture in terms of what students actually have to do and the skills they have to develop. So I think when we talk about creative subjects, we're talking more about the art, the music, the drama, those kinds of things. But I went on this whole big rant about how my first day was insane. So how's your September been so far?
Yeah, I heard you say at the beginning, and I was like, yes, I agree, but nobody could hear
Oh,
me.
okay, good. Okay.
You said you felt like you've been hit by a bus, and I
Yeah.
literally, I was saying it to the exact same thing to a friend on the weekend. So yeah, my mum was like, "Why are you so tired? You just had 6 weeks off." I was like, "But you don't understand."
They never do. They never do unless they've been there.
Thank you
Yeah,
a
it's
million times.
although I feel like it's kind of a back and forth. I feel like it feels so rough because I mean the job is draining and complete madness all the time. But it feels extra rough because we've had the 6 week off,
Yes,
6 weeks off. But then if
it's two
we
extremes.
need the 6 weeks off
Yeah,
because it's so mental,
yeah,
but then it just makes it worse when we come back. And if it was less mental, we wouldn't need the 6 weeks off. But then
exactly.
I don't know what teaching in the UK would look like if you didn't feel like you were being run ragged
It's like a
5 days a week.
show, isn't it? And there's all these
Yeah.
articles like now, like, oh, let's take 2 weeks off the summer and put it onto half term. And it's
Oh,
like,
don't. Oh, don't.
like I went into school 3 days and I was doing work at home for 2 days. That's already a week gone. So like
Mhm.
if they take 2 weeks away, you'd have 4 weeks. You'd do work for a bit, and like it takes brain time also to like switch off from school, you know?
Mhm.
So
Yeah. And so the students do as well. They really do. Yeah,
weeks to get back
it's
into
a
the swing of things.
yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is a tricky one. So, okay, so your experiences of teaching creative subjects as kind of distinct lessons is drama in a primary school. Have you ever taught art or music or anything?
Yeah, I do everything. So
Oh, wow.
no, because I can't play an instrument. I can sing.
Okay.
I mean,
Oh, well.
I sing in front of 5-year-olds because they don't judge.
Do they not?
No, actually, no.
Because I don't have much experience with 5-year-olds, but in my head they have no filter and no concept of like social niceties, so their face will just tell you everything.
You would think so, but I enjoy singing, so I'm not bothered by singing in front of the kids. In fact, I'm teaching them a song. We're doing a Harvest Festival assembly, and I was like, right, I'm not doing the assembly. You
Oh,
guys are going to do it, so let's learn the Harvest Festival song that I'm sure everybody who is going to download this probably knows the song and is like now singing it in their head. Um,
Leanne,
so,
Leanne, I'm too foreign. I don't know what song you're
oh
talking
no,
about.
I shall send it to you.
Well, I'm gonna stick with my original theory. I think you must be a good singer, otherwise you would know from the 5-year-olds' faces. So let's just
Yeah,
go with that.
maybe. Although I
Yeah.
know you said like creative arts. I remember my first year teaching and I taught an art lesson. I'll never forget, it was 11 years ago, but I drew an apple on the whiteboard and the whole class clapped.
Oh.
I can't draw. I really can't. I'm creative, but I can't draw. I was like, oh, guys.
I remember once,
You're
yeah.
better than me, but thanks.
Do you know what's embarrassing is I can actually kind of draw. I am actually quite a I don't say I'm artistic. I say I use the word creative, which it's not going to sound like a word by the time we're done tonight. But I'm not artistic, but I like making things and building things and
Yeah, I'm the same.
kind of
Yeah.
yeah. I love painting. I will paint when I say painting, I mean like painting a wall or painting a wardrobe or something. But I can actually kind of draw. But I tried to do this one diagram on the whiteboard one time, which I've drawn it multiple times, of this of the ending of Macbeth. You know, when Birnam Wood comes to Dunsinane Hill, and all the soldiers are like hiding behind trees, and they're going up the hill. And I was trying to draw this on the board so kids knew, like, understood where the castle was, where the hill was, where the woods were, and how people had to like make their way up there, and why it would look like the forest was climbing up the hill toward the castle. And I was drawing all this on the board, and I've done it 100 times, but for some reason, this time, some kid had drawn like they were competing to draw a perfect circle on the board. So there was this massive circle on the board from a previous lesson that I hadn't erased. And so I just drew the diagram in the circle, and it just all went horribly wrong. And because I was trying to use multiple, it ended up looking like a bowl of food. Like it looked like you were looking bird's eye view down on a bowl, and there was like broccoli in the, or like a plate or something, and there was broccoli, and it totally derailed any sort of sensible conversation. But the kids were trying to figure out like what the vegetables were in the bowl or on the plate, and I was like, do you know what? I give up. I'm done. I'm never doing this again. But I did. But anyway, that's my experience of trying to teach art.
Oh, we do
Yeah.
writing in English, in literacy, so I have to draw story maps. And I mean, like I say to the kids, like, now you know Miss Lax is terrible at drawing, so she needs your help. So it's a great help. I'm not terrible at drawing, but then the kids are like, no, you're very good at it. I'm like, thanks.
Oh,
If you come and help me, I can't draw. And I had an observation, and the observer was like, did the kids draw the pictures? No,
oh my God. Ouch. Ouch.
But thanks.
I bet it didn't look like a plate of broccoli though, so you're one up on me.
No, it didn't. No. But it was Oliver's vegetables though. It would have been good if it looked like broccoli. That would have been a good thing.
All right. So getting away from broccoli, my gosh. I want to talk about like just some kind of general important details. The research I did manage to do very, very briefly, so we'll get to that in just a minute.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Introducing Reading Solutions UK. Home to Dreambox Reading Plus, the online reading development programme, improving outcomes for students and schools nationwide. Create stronger readers in your school from Key Stage 2 to beyond GCSE, using Reading Plus's evidence-based adaptive technology. Reading Plus accurately assesses your students' skills gaps and places them on a personalised learning pathway, built to accelerate their strengths and improve on their areas for development. You can try the program with a free 4-week pilot today. Search Reading Solutions UK to find their website and request your free pilot today.
How can you show your students the opportunities that await them? How can you fuel their aspirations and motivate them to achieve? Futurum Careers provides a wealth of stimulating resources aimed at encouraging 14 to 19-year-olds to pursue careers in STEM and SHAPE. We help you to show your students what they can aim for and how. From articles to activity sheets, animations to podcasts, all our resources align with Gatsby benchmarks and are free for you and your students to download. Visit futurumcareers.com and subscribe today. Futurum Careers, helping teachers to inspire the next generation.
Get set for the year ahead with the Bloomsbury Education Back to School sale. Save 30% on all Bloomsbury education books until 30th September. From the very best in research-led practice to trusted advice on inclusivity, behaviour and curriculum design, we've got something for everyone. Visit bloomsbury.com/B2S sale to shop now and save 30%. Bloomsbury Education, books for every step of your teaching journey.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
Exclusion rates are in the news again, with BBC North East and Cumbria focusing on a study which says North East England will continue to have the highest rate of children being excluded and suspended from schools. According to research by think tank IPPR and charity The Difference, Redcar and Cleveland, Middlesbrough, Hartlepool and Newcastle are amongst the highest in the area for exclusion rates. The report highlights a direct link between deprivation in the region and high suspension and exclusion figures. Middlesbrough Council responded by saying it was a trend we are determined to reverse. Middlesbrough's exclusion rate is 28.1% and is 3 times the national average, with Redcar and Cleveland's even higher at 32.7%. The research concludes that the correlation between poverty and exclusion would make regional divides harder to tackle. Others pointed to lack of resources, specialist staff, and a lack of freedom with curriculum as further pressures schools and pupils face. A spokesperson for the Department for Education said the rising numbers were shocking and showed the massive scale of disruptive behaviour that has developed in schools. The spokesperson went on to say the Department for Education was committed to providing access to specialist mental health professionals in every school and ensuring earlier intervention in mainstream schools for pupils with special needs. The Guardian has more details on the figures across England on its website. In Northern Ireland, schools are being advised to restrict pupils' use of mobile phones during the school day. Education Minister Paul Givan issued new guidance which also applies to limiting use at break and lunch times. He said there was a growing evidence that phones distract children from learning. He also said the guidance would allow teachers to do what they do best, teach. Mr. Givan pointed out that many countries across the world are increasingly taking steps to stop phone use at school, and that the new guidance would allow schools in Northern Ireland to be fully aware of the latest evidence and practical advice. The guidance is being accompanied by a pilot of phone-free solutions, including inviting expressions of interest from schools to use pocket-sized pouches which phones will be placed in. The pouch is then closed by using a magnetic latch. UNESCO, the United Nations Education and Science body, has also previously advised that smartphones should be banned from schools. The previous guidance to schools in Northern Ireland on mobile devices was 8 years old and mainly focused on possible educational uses of phones. In a week that has seen the announcement of the abolishment of 1 or 2 word inspection grades, as well as other changes to Ofsted inspections, the Church of England has released a report which highlights the positive impact of moving away from such gradings. The annual SIAMS inspection report, which can be found on the Church of England website, outlines key recommendations to support continuous improvement in church schools. The report reveals what it calls a smooth transition away from single word grades to a more compassionate, contextual approach to accountability. Under the new framework, over 99% of SIAMS inspections in the last academic year were described as less stressful but more robust. This is a contrast to the BBC's reporting that Ofsted's response to a head teacher's suicide following a school inspection was defensive and complacent. Dame Christine Gilbert's independent review was commissioned after an inquest into the death of Ruth Perry. Ofsted's Chief Inspector, Sir Martin Oliver, accepted most of the review's findings. The findings come after the government scrapped the overall gradings for inspections. Further details of the review can be found across media outlets. Schools Week reports that Ofsted has named the members of 7 new external reference groups that will offer independent advice and challenge as it embarks on reforms. The groups will meet 3 times a year and between them will discuss and challenge Ofsted's data, research and evaluation plans and act as expert advisors on their specialities. They will also advise on any proposed developments and give advice on aspects of training relating to leader and staff well-being. The full list of members can be found on the Schools Week website, but they include recognisable names such as Chris Patterson from the Education Endowment Foundation, Claire Seeley from the States of Guernsey, and Matt Hood of Oak Academy, who will be focusing on curriculum. The Behaviour and Attendance Group includes Tom Bennett of Research Ed and Catherine Roper from Wiltshire Police, as well as Sarah Clark from the National Network of Parent Carer Forums. Other reference groups will focus on inclusion, well-being of leaders and staff, early years and social care, and insights and education. Finally, a US court has charged a father in relation to a school shooting allegedly committed by his 14-year-old son. The gun attack resulted in the death of 4 people at a school in Georgia. The 14-year-old is charged with 4 counts of murder, whilst his father is charged with second-degree murder, manslaughter and child cruelty. They are the most severe charges brought against a parent after a school shooting, and the judge in the case told the 54-year-old father he could face up to 180 years in prison. He is accused of allowing his son to possess an AR-15 style rifle, which is alleged to have been used in the attack. The case has again prompted discussion about gun laws, school safety, and the responsibility of parents for the criminal actions of their children. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Jo Fox.
So, fun story. Just relevant to the news, in my year 10 English lesson today, again, first one, this wasn't one of the creative ones. This was just an interesting conversation. We were doing an introduction to An Inspector Calls, which if you know the play, I think 99% of the country has been forced to learn it by now. It's all about responsibility and for yourself, for your choices, your behavior, your family, society in general, each other, et cetera, et cetera. So I always open with not a debate, but students have to agree or disagree and explain their rationale to a bunch of statements about responsibility. So I did this whole thing I always do. And one of the statements has always been, parents are responsible for the crimes of their children. I think it was phrased on the board, and got the usual responses. Teenagers, very loudly insisting that they are their own people. They're not their parents. Their parents aren't responsible for their choices, etc. And then I told them the story about that student in that school in the States and the shooting and his father being arrested and charged. And funnily enough, almost all of them changed their minds very, very, very quickly. It was an interesting conversation, and I was looking at them thinking, you're all 14. You are all that kid's age. It was just absolute madness what goes on over there. Anyway, on to more enjoyable topics. So, yeah. So some quick, easily found, totally not exhaustive or particularly detailed facts. So in 2021, the creative industries in the UK had 108 billion pounds of economic value. So that's a lot of money, right? And when we say creative industries, they're using probably the broadest term possible. And 2.3 million people were employed in what fell in the creative industries category. Now, interestingly, that was almost a 50% increase from the 10 years before. So these creative industries, they are not going away, they're expanding. And that is everything from, design to film and television, to music, to game development, to all sorts of things. And they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So there's a very obvious argument for particular subjects to be offered in schools more and more and more. But what we're actually seeing is that they tend to be offered less and less and less. And personally, I would blame previous governments for that, but it's probably slightly more complicated than even that would suggest. Can you, Leanne, can you explain from your point of view, from the perspective of a primary teacher who's taught numerous year groups, what do the arts, and I'm using that broadly now, not just like art class full stop or drama class full stop, what do the arts in general bring to primary education, would you say?
I mean, like I said before, we use a lot of the arts in English, a lot of drama, a lot of drawing before writing. I think it helps children to have a thought process. I think putting pen to paper, Word, is difficult sometimes for these younger children that don't even know how to think. Sometimes don't have a thought process for writing, and I think arts in many ways can help in as a building block into writing and into other subjects. I mean, I've done dress up for history lessons with 11-year-olds. Like I did, I dressed up as Queen Victoria for year 6 and did a Q&A.
Oh wow! Oh wow!
Yeah, one of the kids came up to me afterwards actually, and she was like, "Miss Lax, history is my new favourite subject."
Oh,
I'm like, if you're
that's
still
so
out
cute.
there, I hope it's still your favourite subject. Just one girl.
Oh.
Yeah, but like we spoke about this before the show, and I was like, it is a bit odd though, because usually you do all the subjects in primary, and then as you get older, you drop subjects, you know? But I
Yeah.
did say to you before the show that it is funny that in high school you have a drama teacher, like a specialist
Yeah.
drama teacher. And I was like, isn't it funny that you don't get that specialism in primary school? Whereas
Yeah.
actually it might help, because oracy is huge in primary schools, and especially in the younger years, like to be able to say what you want to write before you write it, that's what sort of the younger years of primary are all about. So yeah, I was just like, that's odd that there is one subject that is picked up in high school as a specialist subject that you don't get in primary.
Yeah. And that does, because we talked about this before as well. So I went to primary school almost entirely in Canada, in many different schools. We moved every year of my life, so it was lots of different schools in different cities. And then I spent the whole of my secondary school experience in the Bahamas. So I didn't go to school at all in the UK until I came over here to do my PGCE. And I remember my primary school experiences in Canada were a little bit different to what you've explained, because my schools anyway in Ontario in the 90s had, the schools I went to, almost all of them had separate teaching staff. There was a drama specialist. There was an not always an art specialist, but sometimes there was a separate music teacher. Usually there was a separate, a couple other subjects, French and PE often had separate teachers. So we did actually have those as distinct subjects. And I probably only remember them as clearly as I do because it was so unusual that we had separate teachers for those subjects. And there doesn't seem to be that kind of divide and that kind of separation over here. I don't really know what the implications of that are.
It is weird though, right? Because I said to you before, my cousins in America, when I said like, "Oh, I'm teaching art tomorrow," they were like, "Really? Why?"
Yeah.
It's like, well, why is it like that over there though, and not like that here? Like so it's strange.
It is strange, and I'm hesitant to make kind of generalizing judgments or make any sort of evaluation of which one's better or works better for X, Y, and Z reason if I haven't experienced both myself personally. But
I feel like from a pastoral side, like in primary, I don't know, do you want your kids like traipsing all over the place to different teachers and different, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like that's
ours mostly came to us. Ours mostly came to us. There are obvious exceptions. Like for phys ed, as we said, for PE, we'd go out to a different area. I feel like I'm remembering some other things, but I think those are one-off situations for particular activities we were doing that day. I think from my memories, the teacher still came to us. So our class teacher would go off to do, have her PPA time. And this other teacher would come in to teach us this particular subject. And to us at the time, it was like, oh, well, like I remember feeling that it was special. It made it more of made a bigger deal of those subjects because we saw those teachers as specialist teachers. Like there's an assumption like, oh, Miss Smith can't speak French, so we have a French teacher. Miss Murphy isn't good at art, so we have a separate art teacher. Like that's where my brain went. And it made it seem like these are really specific, hard to develop, but probably valuable or just, special in some way skills to have that not everybody might be able to develop in that sense. Like it did kind of give those subjects that sparkle. But now looking back on it, it's like, well, they could probably just find someone to teach that subject and she needed to go have a break or she needed to take her PPA time. Do you know what I mean? Like there probably wasn't that. That probably wasn't the intention.
Now we've seen the truth, Ray.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do.
Bitter about it.
Yeah, a little bit. I am in retrospect, but it it made those subjects seem special. And maybe that was just the way my brain worked, in the way that, because I've always been interested in the arts anyway, like I've always been kind of a quote unquote creative minded person. It maybe that's why it came across that way. I can't claim that impact was universal or even intentional, because it probably wasn't.
In high school, so my high school was next to like a recreational center, and they had this like theatre space. I think it was called the Croft. I don't know why, but yeah, so we used to go there for drama, and it was just this big black box. And I remember specific things I did in high school. In fact, in high school we did an experiment where we sent a biscuit to our house. I think it was about protective packaging, like, and I do that with my kids now in primary. In fact, we're doing it in science in a couple of weeks' time. So all I remember from this drama lesson is building a dress out of bubble wrap,
which is, I think, a valuable experience to have.
I don't even know what we did it. I don't remember anything else. But,
I mean, sure.
Yeah,
maybe
that's
not.
What we did.
Maybe not in drama. I don't know.
Maybe it was like an end of year lesson.
Yeah, possibly. It is weird though.
Build a dress.
It is weird though. I feel like if you, at least for some students, if you make it that distinct subject, or you emphasize, you somehow make it stand out, or make it seem different, or make it seem special, then it does seem more important and more worthwhile. But I don't think that would have, I don't think every kid, like the kids that just wanted to like kick a soccer ball around, they just want to go out and play football, or they want to go talk with their friends, they want to just like solve the math equation, they're not automatically going to care more about art or music because a different teacher comes in. So I don't know. But anyway, there's so much value from these subjects, right? Like you use the arts in your teaching across the board in primary, and so do we in English in secondary. But we had, it's interesting that you talked about drawing before you write, because we had this whole CPD session last week about, Kate, who teaches our English nurture group, she's been a guest on the show before, and she was delivering this CPD to the whole staff about visualizing and then writing about it afterwards. Like there are more steps than that, but the idea is that you read something, or it's read to you, and students focus, like close their eyes if necessary, and really just picture what is being described, or what's being read out. And then there's some questioning to kind of finalize some of the details and clarify some things and develop ideas, and then they sketch it. And then obviously, and they're talking about this the whole time is a key part of it. And then you can do a few things with that. You can have them focus in on keywords and annotate stuff. Then this can all help them remember things, but we can also use it to build up ideas for writing. Like it's really useful. And she's done amazing things in the nurture group with that particular technique. Like she, did some research and read some stuff and kind of turned it into her own process that has worked absolute miracles with the kids in that English nurture group. And one of our tasks in English this year is to try and use it a bit more. So it's one of the thing that I did it twice today. And it was so lovely to just have the kids listening so intently, and I'm trusting that they are, and they were actually, because I was asking them questions about it, and not all of them, even year 11 students, because I did this with a small year 11 group for extra kind of English revision, not all of them were able to imagine stuff and explain what they can see, or if there were kind of pictures in their head, they certainly were not able, with all of my digging, to explain what they could see in any way, shape, or form. So I'm not saying it works for everyone or it's a quick fix, but the stuff some of the other kids were coming out with was awesome. And they were able to talk about the characters that they were hearing about and that they were thinking about and visualizing in so much depth, considering half of them came in the classroom being like, I don't remember anything about this book. And then they were sketching these characters and using this vocabulary that, based on their attitude when they came in the room I would not have expected them to know or be comfortable using. And it was really, really, really great to see. And then my year 8s drew these really quite terrifying, but that was the point, dystopian landscapes. And I was like, this is great. And I've worked in a school where this would have been so frowned upon, like to have done it maybe as a one-off, or maybe to illustrate a point, or maybe to mix something up or provide like a mid-lesson, but like you could get away with doing it occasionally, I'm sure. But if you use that technique on the regular, you'd have been hauled into somebody's office and asked why you were wasting time, because every minute matters.
Yeah, like why are you drawing? Why aren't you?
Yeah, exactly.
I had that right at the beginning of my career in one of my first schools. Yeah, would have been like, why are you drawing pictures? You need to be writing. We need to get writing out of them. Like, well, writing is a process.
Yeah,
and you need time to be creative, and you also need time to think. Like, I know as a teacher, and like probably a lot of teachers out there as well, like you said, like visualizing. And when I sit down to plan, I visualize what the lesson's going to look like in my head. I think I'm quite a what do you call it? I'm quite visual anyway.
Yeah.
But I do sit and think about what it's going to look like. And really, as teachers, you are performing all the time.
Oh, constantly. It's exhausting. Yeah.
In a year group. So you've got to be, you don't have to be dramatic, but there is a bit an aspect of drama to the job anyway, no matter what lesson you're teaching, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's just, and another thing that came out, because one of the notes I made about, I have this whole list of like the benefits of the arts, but luckily no one's called or texted in to be contrary tonight, because I was going to go off about how it's, art subjects, they develop emotional intelligence, they develop they can develop teamwork and perseverance and drafting skills and self-reflection, critique, etc., etc., etc. And even I was I was looking at this list and I was like, develop emotional intelligence. And I was like, I could talk about English, but like, what do other subjects, how do they develop emotional intelligence? And then I just had this flash of it today when they were literally drawing someone's face and talking about, one kid was like, oh, I gave him wrinkles because it says this, and I made him look miserable because it says that. And another kid said something about like, well, not everyone who's mean is ugly. You shouldn't assume that ugly people are mean. And then the kid was like, but that's what Charles Dickens is saying. That's his whole point. And I was like, oh my God, guys, you're great. And the fact that they're kind of making these connections to not judging people and or basing someone's personality and making assumptions based on their physical appearance. I was like, oh, yes. And actually responding to each other, not just me, having these conversations of their own free will and saying relevant things. I was like, this is the kind of conversation, this is the kind of chat that needs to be happening in lessons. And the fact that all of this came out of, sketching Scrooge's ugly wrinkled face, I was like, beautiful. Beautiful. It was a good moment.
Because like then you can ask the why questions, can't you?
Yep.
It's like, okay, you've drawn kind of this is the face that you've drawn. He looks like this, or why does he look like this?
Yeah.
And then you delve.
They did. I mean, I will say we did that with Scrooge, and then we did it with the first Christmas Ghost, the first Spirit, because that's what they wanted to do. I was like, right, pick another, you get to choose which character, and they chose that one. But by the end of that, they were a bit kind of over it. So it definitely maybe for a lot of students isn't a full-time activity, which is fair. Yeah. But I feel like in other subjects, like in secondary English anyway, and in other subjects, there's so many other opportunities for things. Like we read scripts all the time, and thinking back to that school that I mentioned previously, it was so rare that we ever got students up like reenacting anything. Like you'd give them roles if you were reading out a script. Like if you're reading Inspector Calls, you'd assign different characters to different students. Of course you would, but you wouldn't get them out of their chairs and moving around and doing things, because that just wasn't the kind of approach. That wasn't the approach that they wanted and what was expected. It was very like sit down, shut up, and do the work. And I just feel like so much is missed if you're not getting students up and moving and actually engaging with things in a creative, often physical way.
It is funny though.
I don't know if you...
I know you said there's there's more people going into the arts and that, but I feel like when funding goes, the first place it leaves is the arts, and then in education now at this moment in time we are turning to the arts in all of our subjects, and there's always this battle between like education and the outside kind of professional world, I guess. Not that we aren't professionals, but I mean, the business world. And it maybe isn't seen for its value in the business world even, because I think when we say arts, we don't just mean like painting and drawing. There's so much more to art than that. And it seems like there's like a missing link there almost.
Yeah, there absolutely is. And you said even as teachers we're performing constantly, and that's but if you're in a a people facing role in a business, so are you. Developing how to present yourself and how to engage with people. There are enormous performative elements to that, and you don't learn that by sitting at a desk and copying notes and memorizing things by rote and generally becoming an automaton because you went to a Freudian slip, because you went to one of those militant schools.
You had a robot teaching you your GCSEs.
Yeah, exactly.
Apparently it's happening in a London school.
Oh my gosh. It's terrifying.
Teach drama. You can and the Oscar goes to Robot 2.7 in a few years' time,
I really want to go back to the time when kids were like totally innocently, no knowledge of AI, were asking questions like, what would be the difference between a person and a machine then? Yeah. Or me being able to say things like, machines can't produce art. Art is a uniquely human endeavor, and have no one question that. Do you know what I mean?
Be I know you mentioned before, would someone call in and be like the other side of the argument? And I have one point to the other side of the argument.
Go on.
So I remember, and I said this to my class last year. It was like the last week of the year, and we had more time in English. I was like, we're going to just write our own stories. And I remember when I was in primary school, we had a creative writing book, and every week be like, here's your creative writing book, and you just used to write your own story. Nowadays it takes 2 weeks to build up to writing the story.
Okay.
All these activities that help them to remember the story and to inspire them within the story. And then you teach a bit of grammar here and there that they can use that you hope they will use in the story. And you do a bit of drama, and you make a story map. And I don't know. We talk about it on the weekly review a lot, in that yes, times have changed, but I just feel like kids had more ingrained creativity within them, in let's say the 80s, which is when I was born, because you had to entertain yourself somehow.
Yeah.
You had to. You couldn't just sit on a computer. They didn't exist. iPads didn't exist. Phones didn't exist. So I think, to be the devil's advocate, we have to put the drama in now, and you have to put the arts in now, because the kids need it, and imagination and creativity is not so freely available to them, because technology is so instantly available to them.
Yeah.
So that's the other side of the argument.
Fair. Thank you. Appreciate it. We need it. And I also feel like even so many of my, because I wrote stories constantly when I was a kid. I was obsessed. I still kind of, I think a lot of English teachers are failed writers, or writers who never actually gave themselves the opportunity to do it. But anyway, I used to daydream constantly, and so many of my story ideas would come to me when I was away with the fairies, thinking about X, Y, or Z in my head. And kids just don't. I mean, clearly some students in my lessons do all the time, but in general, when they're left to their own devices, kids aren't staring out a window anymore because there's nothing else to do. They're not wandering around a garden looking at bugs because there's 100%. Nothing else to do. They're not. Yeah. And and so many of those ideas and that inner development, those inner thoughts, those inner processes are just not happening. And then if we're dragging out the process in schools and inhibiting their spontaneity and their ability to come up with ideas and kind of fostering, like, building that muscle, then we're exacerbating the damage that technology is already doing.
Yeah.
Because then they get into their GCSE English exams and they've got a picture on the exam paper and they have to come up with a description or a story. And even though we've done it 100 times in lessons, they haven't been raised with it. They can't be creative on the spot. They can't improvise. They can't come up with ideas from a stimulus without making a plan and doing this and doing this. And I just feel like 20 years ago, it wasn't that big of, I swear that it wasn't this big of a problem.
I don't think so. You're right, to be creative on the spot. And they just can't do it. They find it so difficult. It's so sad, actually.
It really is. And we're not, I'm so convinced that we're just doing, unless we put more opportunities for that kind of more spontaneous element, like types of creativity, into the curriculum from primary all the way up, all the way through, then we're just, that problem is never going to get any better. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. Yeah. But I do want to talk about kind of how far that should go, because we mentioned this before about, do we think students should have to take, like, should they take these separate subjects? And I want to talk about whether or not that should continue, like mandatory creative subjects at GCSE, mandatory creative subjects at A level, etc. So we'll talk about that in a minute.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Introducing Reading Solutions UK. Home to Dreambox Reading Plus, the online reading development program, improving outcomes for students and schools nationwide. Create stronger readers in your school from Key Stage 2 to beyond GCSE, using Reading Plus's evidence-based adaptive technology. Reading Plus accurately assesses your students' skills gaps and places them on a personalised learning pathway, built to accelerate their strengths and improve on their areas for development. You can try the program with a free 4-week pilot today. Search Reading Solutions UK to find their website and request your free pilot today.
How can you show your students the opportunities that await them? How can you fuel their aspirations and motivate them to achieve? Futurum Careers provides a wealth of stimulating resources aimed at encouraging 14 to 19-year-olds to pursue careers in STEM and SHAPE. We help you to show your students what they can aim for and how. From articles to activity sheets, animations to podcasts, all our resources align with Gatsby benchmarks and are free for you and your students to download. Visit futurumcareers.com and subscribe today. Futurum Careers, helping teachers to inspire the next generation.
Get set for the year ahead with the Bloomsbury Education Back to School sale. Save 30% on all Bloomsbury education books until 30th September. From the very best in research-led practice to trusted advice on inclusivity, behaviour and curriculum design, we've got something for everyone. Visit bloomsbury.com/B2S sale to shop now and save 30%. Bloomsbury Education, books for every step of your teaching journey.
So I need to clarify my own experience. So when I was in secondary school in the Bahamas, I went to an international school and we didn't have A levels. My school started doing the International Baccalaureate Diploma program when I went into year 12. So we were the guinea pigs. We were the test year, and my God, we were aware of it. It was a bit of a mess. But one of the good things about the IB program, in my mind, and one of the things I really value from doing it, is that it's meant to be this kind of holistic, well-rounded, broad educational experience all the way up through the end of year 13. or year 13 for us anyway. And you have to take, I don't know if things have changed in 20 years, but you had to take 6 different subjects from 6 different areas, excuse me, and or from 5 areas plus an elective or something like that. And then you have to do all this other stuff on top of it in order to get the full diploma. And those different areas, so you had to take a maths course, you had to take an English course, you had to take a language, you had to take a creative subject, you had to take a humanities or social science, things like that. It was really, I mean, it's not the kind of thing that is for every student 100%, because a lot of young people aren't suited to that kind of academic program. And also some young people, a minority, I think, but some young people just know exactly what type of thing they do want to do and just want to focus in on that and go. And I get that. If you know you want to be a chemical engineer, why are you being forced to take drama or art or music? I get it. But do you think there's something to be said, because I do, but do you think there's something to be said for quote unquote forcing young people to take at least one creative subject up until they actually leave secondary school?
Yeah, I think so. I think I was just thinking while you were talking, I know we spoke about it before, that like maybe you should do art till the end because it has all these mindfulness benefits and you can kind of chill out while you're drawing. But then to some people, art might literally be the complete opposite of that. Like some kids might dread art lessons or dread a drawing lesson. I mean, I couldn't draw. I didn't dread it. Like I enjoyed it. But you might get some kids that are like, I just want to do triple science. Leave me alone in science now. I don't know who these people are, but I'm sure there are kids out there. But then, like, let's say you keep an art subject until you finish school. It doesn't have to be art, like drama, D&T, I don't know, cooking.
I think going with a broad definition of art and creativity is beneficial here.
Yeah, and then the problem you run into is who decides on what is an art subject?
Oh God. Yeah, you can just see the discourse. Yeah.
But yeah.
But it affected me as well. Like I really, really, really resented having to do maths because I was really good at it as a kid, and then I switched countries and switched schools, and then and it was just different. And I ended up if you miss a really important building block, then it's very, very, like everything you build on top of that is always going to be wobbly, right? So I never got my confidence back because I missed a couple units, and it was always I was always playing catch up. I had to work my butt off to get the grades in maths that I got, and I was so angry with this IB program that I had to take a math subject. I was like, I don't want to do it. This is not what I want to do. I want to go like humanities, arts, like this is, I'm not a mathematician. I could not care less. But by the time I actually applied for universities and chose my, the areas I wanted to study for my degree, I realized, oh crap, it's a really good thing that they actually made me do this math stuff, because I got so into psychology from taking it for the IB that I want to study psychology in addition to some other things at university. And actually, in order to do that, there's this prerequisite that I have to do. And like, you had to take certain math courses. And if you didn't have them already, you had to do like statistics 101 or whatever. And I got to skip a lot of those mathematical courses because I had the IB maths. So I didn't know when I was finishing year 11 and young and stupid, I didn't know that math subject was actually going to benefit me in the future, because, kids change their minds and discover things.
How do you know what subjects you're going to need when you're going into Korea at 26 when you finish uni, maybe 25, and you choose them when you're 60? I mean, I didn't hate maths. I was just never good at it. No, that's a lie. I probably didn't like it either. Don't tell my class that.
I won't.
So I wanted to be a chef when I was in high school. That's what I wanted, with a career I wanted. And I was like, I'm not going to need maths. I'm going to be a chef. The fact that chefs do need maths because you're weighing and measuring and whatnot.
Yeah.
And, if my high school maths teacher knew I was teaching maths in year 6, I think he'd fall off his chair. So how do you know what you need? Subject-wise, skill-wise, even when you're years before a job, before a career. And those kind of are
Yeah.
subjects, those like creative subjects give you skills. And I think a lot of the traditional subjects in school are more knowledge based than skill based. So
Yeah.
if you were to keep an art subject on board, you might learn skills that you're never going to learn from the more traditional subjects, I think.
And this is another reason why I think it's so important that we try and fit as much creativity and as much, essence of the arts as we can into non-creative subjects in the general curriculum, and especially with the older years. Like I try, and it's quite, English lends itself to that, thankfully, because I love getting a class up to act out a scene in a play, and it's. I mean, some of the enthusiasm are from the drama students, as you would expect, but not all of it. Some of the kids that get the most into reading these parts are not drama students. They are not kids who have chosen to take GCSE drama. They're students who are doing other subjects for a wide range of reasons. And it's almost like they really just, it almost seems like a break or a relief or like a bit of fun to them, but they're engaging with the text in a way that they wouldn't otherwise. And some of them I kind of have to force to do it, but I try not to bully anybody, but sometimes it happens. But a lot of them, the non-drama students, they love it. They love it so much. And it's like, if you don't make use of those opportunities, if these kids haven't chosen these subjects as options for GCSE or A level, they're literally never going to do it again. And that's so sad, because they do like it. Yeah, it does work for them.
Can you imagine being the kid that's like, you have to take English up until GCSE, but being like, I just can't write, I don't like writing, and then walking into an English lesson and the teacher being like, hey guys, we're going to act out the script today. That kid must be like, oh, thank God,
Yeah.
It's like a little glimmer of hope for some kids, probably.
It is.
To enjoy the subject of English as well, because writing, like, it can be daunting, and I just think... Mm-hmm. I actually had the thought of maybe you should have like drama teachers and English teachers, and they should teach together sometimes.
Well, I feel like sometimes, I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking they do because I've worked in a school where I spent most of my teaching career in a school where a lot of the drama teachers were English teachers. Okay. There was a huge overlap. Like they were separate departments and separate faculties, but they were like the English and drama teachers. Like that was a big thing. And that's why I was doing it. That's why I was teaching drama for when I did.
Yeah.
There were
what we really need? We need drama teachers teaching maths.
I'm laughing, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be so interesting. Do you know what I want to do? An actual swap. I want to do like a subject swap for a week.
Yes. Yeah.
And I want the kids to be totally in on it, so they don't take the mick and think it's just a cover lesson. They can, mess around in. I want them to be like, like on board with it. Yeah. I just think that would be so interesting and so enlightening for absolutely everyone involved. Yeah. I think that'd be great.
Yeah.
I teach maths for a week happily. Yeah. Happily. I might feel differently after the week, but
might feel differently after a day. I know I would.
Okay, well, we've been at this, actually slightly less than an hour because of the technological hold up at the beginning, but that's fine. It's fine. It's okay. So I feel I didn't actually quote this, so I feel like I have to quote it now. So the quotation I alluded to at the very beginning, I just think sums everything up. I printed this out on massive paper and hung it up in my first ever classroom. Aww. And I used to really annoy the science nerds with it because they hated it. Wow. But I would just get in fights about this quote all the time. Okay, so this is from Dead Poet Society. Medicine, law, business, engineering, these are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. Mm-hmm. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for. And I like to keep that in my head when I'm marking something that is so full of heart and soul and love, but the punctuation is appalling and the spelling makes no sense. I just remember it's about the beauty and the romance and the love, not the technicalities. That's not all we're here for. There's so much more to life than that. Yeah. But anyway, thank you, Leanne, so much for making it and sharing your thoughts
No worries.
tonight. And thank you for listening whenever you're listening to this. I hope it inspires some people to go be a little bit more creative and fight for that freedom, even if you have to do it when you know your line manager's teaching so they can't come into your room and judge you for it.
Be dramatic.
Try that drama. Yeah, try that drama activity. It is worth it, I promise. All right, thanks again, Leanne.
All right.
Have a lovely evening.
Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.